The Celtics Talk podcast is presented by 24autogroup.com. 11 locations across New England.
There are two types of listeners after the Celtics lose a frustrating game. There are those that come here seeking what I sometimes call group therapy, that just need to hear another voice vent because they're mad at what the Celtics did to lose a game, even though they don't lose a lot of them, and just need to hear someone kind of say, yeah, you're right. We should be mad about this. And then there's a group of people that listen and say, they've only lost 16 games. Stop overreacting. Leave me alone and let me overreact, because in the moment, it is painful. And this week in particular, as the Celtics stumble their way through Atlanta, has been particularly infuriating. What's up, everybody? POSTGAME POD 73, coming to you after the Celtics fall to the Atlanta Hawks for the second time in 4 days, 123-122 in overtime. Dejounte Murray shooting the Hawks to a triumph. Look, we're going to cover all the bases. I know most of you, if you were come here and you're angry about the final play of regulation, you know I counted the dribbles, you know I hated the shot, and yet I would be lying if I said that that was the most maddening aspect of the night. Maybe I've just become resigned to the fact that the Celtics are not always going to have the ideal draw-up in those situations. I did like that they ran a better play in overtime and put themselves in position to win. But ultimately, this game was lost over the course of, 53 minutes, because the Celtics could not lock in with the intensity necessary on defense or to clean up the glass when Dejounte Murray was missing shots. And I think we can get caught up, which I admitted after Monday's loss, a lot in the final possessions, and yet usually there is a whole bunch of other missteps along the way. What's frustrating is I'm unsure how having to linger on kicking away a 30-point lead and losing in Atlanta on Monday, you don't come out completely locked in, particularly as you get your starting five back and run them extended minutes trying to get back on the right track, and yet there is enough missteps, miscues, lack of focus to promote a game that has roughly 1 billion lead changes, culminating with Dejounte Murray making a mid-range jumper over Drew Holiday with 0.1 seconds left to lift the Hawks to yet another surprising victory. I would love for the Celtics to have been more locked in tonight. I was hoping that Monday would be a little bit of a wake-up call, that there had been some slippage, especially on the defensive end. And yet they never quite got to the level that we know they can get to. Now, there was little blips where they would play well, but yet again, they put themselves in a vulnerable spot, both with poor late game execution and being unable to get the stops when they so desperately needed them. All right. Like I said, I know you guys want to talk about the last play of regulation. You need me to tell you that it was awful. You need me to count the dribbles. I think there was 28. 24 before Jayson Tatum got the take foul. And look, I'm not even really mad about that, because this is one of those situations where in a tied game, I don't mind taking the clock down, and especially once Atlanta fouled with one to give. I'm okay with you taking the last shot. Now you're not giving them an opportunity to steal it. What I don't love is that Tatum never makes it inside the three-point arc, that there isn't movement, that the Celtics settle for a sidestep three-pointer. There has to continue to be better options. And in fact, we saw that when the game flashes to overtime. Celtics need a bucket down one, and a sort of similar draw-up, but this time the ball goes to Kristaps Porzingis near the paint. Tatum cuts to the basket looking for getting him the ball with momentum and potential layup. And when that fizzles, because the Hawks are trailing it, the ball ends up with Jaylen Brown. Now, look, this wasn't, I'm not going to tell you it was like an ideal look. He was covered pretty well, but Jaylen made a tough shot. And so credit, it felt like the feel-good moment, right? Like, okay, someone other than Tatum is taking the shot. JB in his hometown. I think on the anniversary of that game winner, he won out in Utah a few years ago. And it felt like a moment, like, okay, yeah, the Celtics remembered. You can get the ball to touch other people's hands, and even if Tatum is just making the defense move, good things can happen. Dejounte Murray ruins all that by going down the other side, and even with Drew Holiday playing some fairly good defense, that's probably not even fair. Like, it was good defense at the finish line. It's just Murray taking his 44th shot of the night, hits the winner, 12 of 25 on 2-point field goals. I mean, we all knew where the ball was going. I'm sure the Hawks must have schemed up something where if the Celtics decided to blitz. Certainly you can sit here and wonder if the Celtics could have been a little bit more crisp defensively. Should they have sent extra bodies at Murray earlier, especially as he got going late in the game? It would be hypocritical to sit here and lament some of what the Tatum ISO offense that we lament, and then to say, Celtics should have been better on Murray. Sometimes you do just want to put your best defenders on there. He did take advantage of Kristaps Porzingis, and as you'll hear from Joe Mazzulla, there was some chatter about working on some 1-through-5 switching, and that put Porzingis in some vulnerable spots. It will give the team something to learn from in this game, but as usual, in the moment, it's a little bit disappointing. Celtics continue to just have a lot of trouble in clutch games, in thriving in those moments. And so, yeah, if you're frustrated, I'm with you. I understand it. This one, to me, is a little bit easier to explain away, even if, what I'm eager to do is go back and watch some of the defensive possessions. Why were there breakdowns? Why was it such a constant battle on the glass? The Hawks end up generating 28 second chance points off of 17 offensive rebounds. Celtics actually did a good job. When they did get rebounds, they were able to push the ball, get out in transition. I think the other frustrating thing here is that the Hawks were playing their third game in 4 nights. Not only were they playing the Celtics in this little Celtics home and home, but there was a game against Portland last night wedged in the middle. And so the Celtics probably should have been equipped with the Hawks playing second night of a back-to-back to kind of motor away. And so just being up at the half, it felt like they maybe could have hit the accelerator and blew this thing open a little bit. Even getting to overtime, I said, oh man, it's like the minutes are eventually just going to catch up with the Hawks. But no, Dejounte Murray would not stop making mid-range buckets and sends the Celtics home disappointed yet again. Eager to see the response, eager to I like, it's a balance. You're going to hear some post-game sound, and you're going to be probably a little bit like me and kind of grate your teeth when you hear them saying there's positives to take from this and came down to shot margin. These things are not false statements. I just wish that with a little bit more focus, the Celtics could have been talking about finding a way to win this game. How maybe JB hits the winner, and then you get a defensive stop, and we're sitting here celebrating how the Celtics didn't run the same old at the finish line, found a way to win, dug in defensively when they needed to. I know the end-of-game possessions always get magnified, and we are as guilty as anybody of harping on them. But I do think there is something to the notion of these are the sort of moments you're going to run into in the playoffs, and I think that's why we all yearn for the Celtics to be just a little bit more crisp in those moments. The numbers, as I've told you before, just in these close games that are, even beyond the clutch criteria, that are just like super clutch games, 1-possession games, final 3 minutes, 1-possession games, final 1 minute. So let's just need to be a little bit better, because it always feels like playoff games hinge on tight games that, yeah, there'll be some lopsided games in there, but ultimately the games that swing a series are the ones where were you able to be the better team for 5 possessions over the final, minute and a half of this game. And tonight the Celtics just either squandered opportunities or just were not crisp enough. And it's just maddening to think that after the way Monday night played out. And for one of the rare times this year, the Celtics are left to dwell on another little mini losing streak. And yeah, look, if you're in the other camp, if you're one of those people that are like, can't believe they're being negative yet again on this podcast, just going to remind you, it is perfectly fine to nitpick a good team. The Celtics have not played to the level that they have shown themselves capable for much of the season. You can revel in the fact that Drew Holiday was back out there, that Shoulder looked pretty good on most of his three-point attempts and was good defensively, even that last possession where Murray hits a tough shot. I just yearn for the Celtics to sort of look at their missteps and say, that's unacceptable, and we're going to show it by our play in the next game. And now we're left wondering exactly how it'll look when they get down to New Orleans on Saturday night. Enough of me grumbling. Let's get to the rest of our post-game coverage.
Celtics fall in this one, 123-122 in overtime. Scal, just start with you real quick. What did you think about the late game, the management at the end there, the late game execution from the Celtics as they fall just short in this one?
I mean, I didn't love regulation, but I was fine with the way that they executed in overtime. I think they had an idea of going to Porzingis. He made the right basketball play. Jaylen Brown made a tough shot.
What did you guys think down in Atlanta, Eddie, of the Celtics and the way they kind of drew things up at the end of regulation and in overtime?
Well, I thought at the end of the fourth quarter, I thought that they were just stagnant. They were just waiting for somebody to get a shot, playing one-on-one basketball, got totally away from the way that they play. And then I thought just defensively, their attention to detail, too many offensive rebounds. I know this team crashes the glass. If you know that, you have to make sure you find a body, put a body on somebody, and go close out that possession with the rebound.
You know, I think the Celtics did take advantage of Atlanta's aggressiveness on the offensive glass in transition. You probably want to find a happy medium between doing that and allowing them to get, 18 offensive rebounds and a bunch of second-chance points. Bogdanovic's 3 to tie the game. That was off an offensive rebound, which was kind of the story of the game. And then frustrating at the end there with that last possession of regulation. They had the entire shot clock, and it was 4 dudes standing around and one guy taking a pretty bad shot.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the other side of this is that Dejounte Murray goes for 44 points, and he had 11 in overtime. We saw different guys defend him. You saw a good possession from Derek White. Drew Holiday had a nice possession in there as well. But in the end, Dejounte Murray just able to make the shot. Was that just the clutchness of Dejounte Murray in this situation?
I mean, I think Eddie talked about just the lack of defensive intensity to start the game, and he got it going. And it's really, at that point, he's a really good player. Like, a lot of people think Dejounte Murray is a star on a lot of different teams. He could be a lead guy, and to try to shut that off later on, it's tough. And I give him a lot of credit. Like, they played 3 games in 4 nights, and he's on a back-to-back, and it looked like he had the most energy out there.
Well, how do you do it like this?
Eddie, what do you think of Dejounte Murray's performance down the stretch?
I thought that they hunted out Porzingis matchup, and we didn't make the adjustment till late there when we was forcing the guard to go over the top and trail instead of switching. They were hunting that switching matchup the whole time, and he was able to get to where he wanted. We didn't make the adjustment, and sometimes you got to just say, hey, you know what? Let's get the ball out of his hands, and let's rotate out of that. But, you got to tip your cap off to Dejounte Murray. He came out, and he was chirping from the beginning. So this game meant a lot for him.
I think Scal makes a good point, too, about how much he's played 3 and 4 nights back-to-back. He was questionable coming in. Played 47 minutes tonight. He got 44 shots up, scored all 11 of their points in overtime. And, yeah, you're right, Eddie. He was talking that talk all the way back to Monday, and he backed it up tonight. Even though it did take him a million shots to get there, he was the reason they won. Think about it, we're obviously upset, Giles, but if he doesn't make a really tough shot with 0.1 left, the Celtics walk out of here with a win.
But that was solid D, but he already had it going. We gave him too many looks and too many easy looks where he was comfortable. We didn't really make him uncomfortable until there in the overtime where Drew Holiday was getting into him, and he has a couple tough shots. But besides that, I thought that he had a masterful game being out there, being in control, and had the most energy in 3 games
for sure.
In 4 nights.
You go back to regulation. The Celtics were up by 3 with under 30 seconds to go. It was an offensive rebound that led to a Bojan Bogdanovic three-pointer, and that was one of the big themes in this one was the second chance points.
Sure.
28 of those for Atlanta in this game.
Yeah, so I'll tie in the second chance points with the defense because a lot of times when you get cracked on the glass, you're giving up dribble penetration, a big is coming over, and a guy is getting offensive rebounds. So rebounding and poor defense in this game is tied in together. And I just thought, like, Atlanta looked like the more aggressive team, the team that was quicker to the ball. You know, I didn't love our defense throughout. We had 40 points in the paint in the first half. That was had to be close to a season high. On the year, we gave up 60 today, but that's because they started knocking down threes in the second half. So 28 second chance points. You know, sometimes this game, on the contrary, like people get caught up in execution and shots made and, you know, do we take too many threes? You know, we're usually a great rebounding team. We're a great defensive team, and we've kind of lost that identity. You saw some of the stats throughout the game about where we were and where we've been in our last 4 games. Well, today is not going to help that either. So right now, you know, our defense is definitely slipping. We're a top 5 team in both categories. Our defense is the reason why we're the odds-on favorite to win an NBA championship. And if you're not going to defend the ball and you're not going to rebound the ball, then you're in an uphill battle. And, you know, we still could have won this game. Jaylen Brown makes an excellent shot to put us up. But when you look back, the lesson learned is you got to play right from the start. You can't allow what happened in the first half. And you have to have a battle and a mindset to battle on the glass. Because that's ultimately the way you win championships, defense, rebounding, taking care of the basketball. But today our defense was poor and our rebounding was very poor.
It felt like there was almost a couple minutes there in the third quarter, like between 5 and 3 minutes to go in the third quarter, where there were some good defensive trips where they got some blocks.
No question.
You know, and they're trying to distance themselves from the Hawks and just say, hey, we're the much better team here. But Atlanta just hung around. How much is it also that you let a team kind of hang around and get some confidence that it's going to be that much more difficult to put them away?
Yeah, there's some truth to that. But I think, like, if people are watching this show right now, they're wondering, is this going to be something that comes back to bite us, right, in the playoffs? And, you know, only thing I could say is it seems like when it's a big game against marquee opponents, we seem to handle our business. And for whatever this little stretch is, you know, and it's not just, don't get me wrong, it's not just the Atlanta game. If you go back to the Chicago game, you heard me on the broadcast, the first 3 quarters, we're like picking and choosing when we want to defend. And maybe that's natural with the season being so close to being done, with a giant lead. You're going to conserve your energy, you know, whatever. You're going to go in there, you're going to try to get wins by expending as little energy as possible. So if that is the case, then we should talk about that. But all I hear is building great habits. All I see is coasting to the finish line. So either way, I'm fine because I feel like the Celtics are going to have home court advantage. You guys know where I stand. I don't necessarily believe that there's a carryover. Like, if we don't guard Atlanta well, all of a sudden when we get to the playoffs, we're not going to be able to guard. I don't believe that. I really don't. But it seems like the message coming through is developing good habits, and we'll find out. New Orleans is a good basketball team. They play tough. Zion is living at the rim. So we'll find out if we're about that life right from the start, or if we're in this world where we're going to kind of coast to the finish line. And you know, if that's where we're at, then, you know, let's just be honest about it and let's admit it.
Joe, the last possession of regulation, when we got there after the foul, what happened on that?
Give JT the ball and have him make a play for us. So he got a shot off, and you know, looked like a good look and didn't go.
You go to a different look and overtime, you know, before Zingis and Coles, you get into play on there. Are you just sort of looking for like a different kind of, I guess, just approach in that spot after how the one in regulation ended?
No, those are 2 different plays. That one's to end the game when you get the last shot. The other one is you're down 1, so you draw up a 2-for-1 play because you want to extend the game. So two completely different situations.
So it's just a situational.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nothing to really take us through. Needed to stop. You know, tough shot, both ways, 2 physical teams. That's pretty much it.
How did that play come together for your shot at the end of overtime there? It looked a little different from some of the, you know, last-second plays you've run for a lot this year.
Yeah, that was, you know, just random. The play broke down. We ran in action, but Atlanta kind of blew it up. So I just made a play towards the ball. KP found me, and then got off a tough shot and would have went in.
What was supposed to happen on that play originally?
Supposed to be like a rip screen, trying to see if we can get a layup towards the rim, but Atlanta's physicality, kind of blew it up, so we weren't able to. KP called it way further than he would have liked. So I just ran and tried to make a play on the ball.
Jaylen, what have you guys learned over the past 2 games? Like, what has this taught you, this trip here?
I think it's been good. I think, one, give credit for Atlanta, but this is like a playoff level of physicality. I think they benefited from the whistle. We would have liked to see some more consistency from it, but, some days it's going to be like that, especially on the road in the playoffs. I felt like I got fouled, especially like going towards in the fourth quarter before overtime, that go-ahead bucket. They let that go, but, some days it's going to be consistent, some days it's not. Still got to find ways to win and match the level of physicality. I think we did good for the most part outside of the glass. Like we had to get on the glass, fight on the glass. I got to do a better job of getting there and getting those rebounds. But give credit to Atlanta, they tough, and when you get a whistle that swings your way, it makes you even tougher. So definitely some good information that we can learn from.
Murray missed a ton of shots. He also made a ton of shots, but they got a ton of second chance points off those misses.
That was it. Yeah, Murray, tough player. A lot of respect. He played his ass off, allowed his team to get the win. But I felt like we guarded him pretty well. He made some tough ones, but we just got to get on the glass. That was the key to the game. Offensive glass. Capella, was a beast down there, but we got to up our level of physicality on the glass. We didn't do that, and that's why we lost.
They've been trying to kind of relearn who they are with Trey out, and it seems like this week especially they've really started to figure it out. And now you actually might see them in the first round again. So how are they starting to transform, and what kind of tests are they bringing for you?
Yeah, the season is it's a journey. It's ups and downs. So they're trying to figure out their identity, trying to figure out the way they want to play, and stuff like that. And I guess that's we'll wait and see if we match up with them in the playoffs, but we'll be ready.
Like you said, it's a learning experience, having that top 5 back together, and in those situations, how important can that be?
Can what be?
Beneficial having those top 5, you guys there on the floor, clutch situations.
Yeah, in the fourth quarter, we got a bunch of great looks. I think we had at one point, D. White missed a floater, KP kind of missed a layup at the rim, and then Drew missed a left-hand layup. All back-to-back sequences was wide open looks in the fourth quarter, and I thought those was great looks. They just didn't go down, and that kind of led to them, feeling more comfortable, more confident. But I feel like we executed. I think we just got to be more physical and own our space a little bit more. But it's good. It's good information to learn from.
Joe said a lot of those one-point games, final minute, just come down to shot making. You guys are 4-8 in those spots this year. Is there anything else you can point to in those spots that you guys need to improve on before the playoffs, those one-point games, final minute?
I think just, like you said, execution, not settling. Sometimes I think we have settled or whatever, and we can get to the basket and things like that. But, I think we'll be ready when it's time to come. We just got to make sure that we execute, we got our spacing, and then we're not settling because, we're not leaving it to the officiating. You get to your spot, go up and down, and live with those results.
The final play in regulation, Matthews fouled you because they had a foul to give. What were you looking for in that last play when you took the 3?
Found an opening. He came, Drew came in, brought his man in action, and they switched. It was only 6 seconds left. Just trying to get a clean look. Hold it for the last shot, make sure they didn't get an opportunity to get the ball.
Did you like the shot, or could you have gotten closer, driven? Any second thoughts?
5 seconds, I called it at half court. Hindsight, you always could go back and see a lot of shit you probably wish you would have done differently, especially when you lose.
How do you feel like you fared in those spots this year, those last shots to, go ahead, tie game, down 1, down 2? Where do you feel like you're at in running those sets?
Yeah, I know I missed a couple this year. So it was like, damn, I got to be due for one. I hit a bunch of them in my career so far, but it's part of it. Make a mislead, but I really do enjoy being in those situations.
What has this team learned about itself in this trip? This 2 games, this blowing a 30-point lead. Tough. Can you take a positive from this? What have you guys learned?
Winning is hard, and we've been fortunate enough to do a lot of being on the other side, and just a good reminder. Just can never take those for granted. Every single night is going to be tough, and just get ready for Saturday.
All right, next up, like I said, Celtics are down in New Orleans for a Saturday night showdown with Zion Williamson and the I don't know, upstart's the right word, like the Pelicans, who have obviously been sort of at times a roller coaster, and Zion in particular. How will he look? And right now he's playing some really good basketball, and so Celtics got to be ready. New Orleans took down the Bucks tonight, so the Celtics have got to put this little trip to Atlanta behind them. That was 6 rough days down there, 2 rough games. Let's see what the response is on Saturday night. We'll be here with you on the post-game pod. Go like, subscribe, check us out on the YouTube page. And again, for those of you who come here for a little bit of anger, disappointment, I hope I justify some of your feelings. I hope I've talked you down a little bit more than maybe Monday night when my blood pressure was through the roof with this team. It's okay to lose your mind. We all come back to earth eventually. And as I've said, Celtics are a really good basketball team. They just got to be a little bit better so that we can all be a little bit more positive on this program. We'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk Podcast.